All right. There's still people coming in and out. I think we may as well start getting on with it because we do have a limited time today and there is a lot to go through. So first, hi everyone. My name's Ro, and I'll be talking to you about attracting new customers and leads to your website. Put messages in chat. I'll try and get to them if I can. If I'm too quiet or whatever, let me know in chat. I'll check it up as soon as possible. Yeah, let's get started. So before we do start, just a little bit about ASBAS. You've all no doubt registered with ASBAS. So just letting you know, there are workshops which are now currently online. You can do 2 hours of tailored mentoring, which is an amazing offer. I'd recommend everyone take it up. The people I've worked with on this have got a lot out of it. And there are lots of webinars and online materials, this being one of the webinars. Let's go next. So this is some information about the mentoring. Like I said, it's at $25 for 2 hours. It's amazing. Yes, you will get the slides afterwards. All right. So a little bit about me. So my name's Rohit. I'm the technical director at Trio Agency. I've worked on software, I've worked in data, I've worked in digital marketing. I've done a whole lot of things, including human-centered design. And yes, I guess for me, teaching people or educating people about technology and how kind of the digital space works is a passion of mine. So I like to do that a lot. All right, today we're going to cover topics, and it is about attracting new leads and customers to your website specifically. So there will be a fair bit of talk about, I guess, digital stuff. But there are some underlying marketing concepts I'll be covering too. So things like understanding your audience, developing a value proposition, understanding the marketing channels, I guess what's available to you and what you should be using, ideas and I guess tips on content, as well as measurement. So it'll be a bit of an overview. There are some more, I guess, specific workshops and webinars you'll be able to get on specific marketing channels like social media or search engine optimization, if that's something that you're looking for. But this will give you a good overview on the whole thing. All right, let's go. So we're going to start with understanding your audience. And I know it kind of sounds like a bit of a given, but there's some really good tips in here, so I'd recommend following along. So the first thing when you're trying to understand your audience is to look at demographics. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand who the person is that you're selling to. You're trying to understand what motivates them and therefore how you can reach them online. So with your audience, you're trying to understand things like, I guess, the things that make them unique. So you're looking for, and it doesn't always have to be about age or gender or their location or their career. Think about the things that make your customers unique. So for example, if you decide that your customers are anywhere between 18 and 85, it's probably too broad. Like, sure, there might be the whole range of people who buy your services or buy your products, but if you go that broad, you're not going to be able to actually target someone. A good tip I find is to actually imagine one of your actual customers. So for example, you've had a good interaction with a customer and they're fairly typical of your customers. Imagine who that person is and describe them. And it's not, things like age and gender too, it's not like you have to be extremely tight on that either. And it might actually help if it is, I guess, less about numbers and more about the accuracy of the people. So for example, if you provide services to young people, your customer might be non-binary or yeah, or you know, trans or anything like that. If that's your audience, put it in there as your as your, I guess, your demographics. And before I do go on, I saw in chat there is a link to a survey just for feedback on this workshop at the end. If you can click that link and fill out that survey at some point, that'd be amazing. Thank you. All right, so once you've got, I guess, I mean, these are kind of like profile stats or demographics on a person. The next step is to look at their behavior, and not just general behavior, but their behavior in respect to your business. So think about things like what motivates or inspires this person. When do they think about your products and services? Where do they get their advice and information? What are their values? And what objections could they have about purchasing your products and services? So as you'll see, this section on behavior, I guess the previous section on demographics is quite generic. Like this could apply to any of your businesses. This next one is about their behavior specifically with your business. So this is when you're trying to understand how they interact with your business, how they interact with your services, how they interact with your products. And what you're looking for here is understanding, I guess, what makes them choose you. Cool. So what I'm going to do, I've actually put together a sample of a persona or an audience. So here's my audience, and as you can see, I've given her a photo, and I've pulled this off a free stock library. I've given her a name, I've given her an age. She's single, she lives in Canberra, she's got 2 cats, and she's got a job. This is the demographic stuff. From then on, I'm actually talking about behaviors. So she's not on a super tight budget. This is Jen, but she always is conscious of costs. She doesn't like to waste money. She values her health. She goes to the gym. She eats well, rarely drinks. And then our actual behavioral stuff, I'm assuming that I'm running a travel agency, which is obviously not a great idea right now, but I'm sure it'll pick up. But anyway, in respect to this customer, Jen, and my travel agency business, I'm thinking this is my customer. Jen is savvy. Thanks, Peter. Jen is savvy enough to organize her own flights and accommodation. So she's not someone who, you know, has to sit in front of the travel agent and be told, here's a package. But she doesn't have time to scour the web for deals. If someone could just send her good flight and hotel deals when they come up, she'll jump on it. She likes to travel with her girlfriends. So if the deal is good, she's not just buying a ticket for herself, she's going to organize 4 to 6 of her friends to go along with her. So this little bit of behavioral stuff here tells me a lot about how I'm going to sell my travel services to Jen. So I might be thinking things like, right, so she wants to know just the hot deals. So I'm going to just send her a newsletter every month and say, here's what's on sale this month. Hop on it now. Another option is group kind of packages. I could sell her group packages because she'll just get her friends on board, and then I've got 6 sales. They'll be great. That's how we go about understanding our audiences. And the good thing is, if you do this, it's a lot of groundwork, but if you do this groundwork, you've then got, I guess, the basis of all your marketing efforts. And every time you do something in marketing, you can look back at your personas and say, does this piece of marketing reflect this customer? How are they going to react to it? All right. But you don't just stop at Jen. There's you definitely don't have just one type of customer. So we need to look at other kind of customer personas. So for example, if it's in the travel agency, Jen's one type of customer, there might be another kind of customer. Maybe you do a lot of business travel. So you should create a persona for your business travel. But there's more people than that too. Other than just customers, there are other people who can generate leads and leads and sales for your business. So, for example, people who have complimentary offers. So again, I guess maybe like a car service or or an airline or any of that kind of stuff could help me as a travel agent. I know from my perspective as someone who does a lot of consulting, I forward on a lot of business to people who do a lot of implementation. So for example, I do a lot of strategy in terms of marketing social media. I don't hands-on manage many social media accounts. So someone who does social media management could list me as a potential audience because they can actually get sales and leads off me. Your suppliers. So again, if you're a cafe and there's someone who supplies you with your food, chances are they talk to other retailers, they talk to other people, and they'll be more than happy to promote the fact that their food is being prepared and sold at your cafe. They can actually generate leads for you. Influencers, we'll talk a bit more about influencers later, but basically these are people either online or in the real world who can generate sales for your business through essentially convincing other people that it's a good idea. So celebrities are a great example of that. Get a celebrity endorsement for your product, and a lot of people who respect and follow that celebrity will probably be more interested in your product. Government, again, it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. But for example, we have a couple of different kind of within our agency. We actually have some personas ourselves, and one of them is for government bodies who actually fund things like startups and accelerator programs, because we deliver a lot of that work. Having a good relationship with those kind of organizations gives us access to things like startup capital or grants for our customers so that they can get work off the ground. And that gives us work. Wholesale or resellers, potential business partners, potential investors. There's a whole lot of people who can help you grow your business. Start making personas for all of them. I really recommend personas, as it gives you an amazing amount of clarity and direction. And as you can see, as yet, we're not even talking about online. This is all basic, not basic, probably fundamental concepts of marketing. And it's something that a lot of people do, I guess, skim over, because it is a lot of work and it doesn't in itself deliver customers, but it means that the following work you do, which we'll start touching on soon, is so much more directed, and you're kind of able to get a lot better outcomes from your effort if you do this kind of preparation work. All right, so we've got our customers. In fact, we've got a whole bunch of customers. The next thing we're going to do is our value proposition. So has anyone done, I guess, built your own value proposition for your business before? Like, I guess let's start with everyone. Does everyone know what a value proposition is? I'm getting silence in the chat room. Let's talk about a value proposition. So your value proposition is the reason customers buy your products or services. And it's the part of themselves they see in your brand. Oh, there's a bit of no's and yeses. There you go. So a value proposition is not price, and it's not a generic term like quality. it was funny. I had I was running a workshop with actually a whole bunch of health providers, like healthcare providers, really, in regards to the NDIS. And I went around the room and I asked everyone just to tell me what makes their business unique. And it literally went around the room and said, oh, hi, I'm this person from this business and we deliver quality healthcare. And the next person would go around and be like, all right, your turn. And they'd be like, oh, hi, I'm from this hospital and we deliver a high level of quality healthcare. And then it just went around the room and 8 people basically just said they deliver quality healthcare. So I said to them all, I said, right, great, but so far you all sound the same to me. And I was kind of thinking that if I went to a hospital or a medical service, quality healthcare is a given. And they all kind of looked at each other and went, oh my God, you're right. Everyone gives quality healthcare, especially in Australia. So what is it that makes us unique? So things like quality is not it. Price is not it. It's the reason why someone buys a really expensive car. Like a Mercedes is not any more or less useful than a Hyundai, but someone's willing to pay $100,000 for a Mercedes, and someone else is only willing to pay $15,000-$20,000 for a Hyundai. They're not buying the price, and they're not buying the quality. The cars are essentially the same thing. They do the same thing. Especially nowadays, most cars have all the stuff, all the features, regardless. What they're buying is their emotions, their feelings of what it's like to have that car. They're buying the pride. They're buying that feeling of I've made it. They're buying their dreams. Yeah, good question, Catherine. What if they choose you, but they also choose several of your competitors? That's where these value propositions actually come into effect. It's actually it's understanding in what scenarios you come up ahead of the others. And that gives you the knowledge to then prompt those feelings. I've got a good example of that coming up. Cool. So I'll just make sure I've covered off everything I needed to. Yes. All right, let's keep going. So my example is Airbnb. Obviously, they are fairly big. They have huge competitors. So like the whole hotel industry is run by massive, massive competitors. They also compete with small businesses like your regular bed and breakfasts, your more independent kind of providers. So here's their value proposition. They offer a more intimate way to travel. What they're doing is they're saying, we're not a hotel. We don't do what hotels do. We give you an experience. So you experience the city like a local. You're not in the shopping district. You're in a house or in an apartment in the city, living life in that city. They're digital. They're savvy. They're modern. They're young. They're social and engaging, and they want people to be adventurous. And their tagline is belong anywhere. So belong anywhere, what they're saying is essentially have that experience of being, I don't know, like being a local in, say, somewhere like Amsterdam or Johannesburg or wherever it is you want to be. Live it like you're actually living there. Have that experience and go. Now, it certainly appeals to some people. It appeals to young travelers who are out for experiential travel. Louise, typing out, what if a customer is buying established business experience, but you are a new business? It's again where your value proposition sits. If you're a new business, the last thing you want to do is sell yourself as established and trustworthy and all that kind of stuff. You'll sell it more as new and exciting, different, unique. And again, if you look at your audience and your audience are people looking for trustworthy, reliable, I'd suggest you probably got the wrong audience for that. And you can't appeal to everyone. So it's more about looking at what your customer is and where you can fit in. So a lot of new businesses will go for that. Hey, look, we're different, we're fresh, we're unique, try something different. Like that Airbnb, be adventurous. So that's kind of what they're suggesting. And that's what, I mean, again, if you've got a new business that doesn't have that kind of trust already in the market, you'd go for something along those lines. So yeah, Airbnb will attract young travelers because they're more adventurous, typically. People who are budget conscious, even though Airbnb says nothing about budget, it is a more do-it-yourself type solution, and do-it-yourself means cheaper. It'll be used by people who want to be seen as more worldly. I don't know if any of you have friends who are like, oh, we didn't get a hotel when we went over to the States. We Airbnb'd the whole way across, the country, and it was great. It's a bragging thing because they're like, hey, look at me. I can find my way across an entire, foreign country on people's couches, on people's spare beds, save money, experience the world. It's people who travel for pleasure because they're there for the experience, and it's the DIY travelers. At the same time, who does Airbnb not appeal to? Because that's the big part of it. Like, you're never going to, I guess, like I said at the start of this, your audience is not everyone. So they don't appeal to people who travel a lot, especially business travelers. Because if you're a business traveler, the last thing you want to do is to be sleeping on a couch one night and on a spare bed the next night, being woken up by the neighbor's dog or whatever it is. A hotel gives you that kind of consistent experience the whole way through, where I guess it eases, the culture shock and the strain and the stress of travel when you're trying to do something else. People who are not confident traveling. My parents are in their 70s and my dad's actually in his 80s. They would never Airbnb because they don't know what they're going to get. They'll always talk to a travel agent. They'll always get a package. Older travelers, again, it's the same deal. They're usually not as confident traveling, but even if they are, they're less likely to be tech savvy and are less likely to be using those kind of online self-service type people. All right. So you got your value proposition, and like I said, it's going to be about feelings. It's Chanel. It's about feeling special and like a princess. A lot of the sport type brands and the masculine brands are about feeling powerful. I know, like Bunnings is about feeling handy. They really play up the the DIY dad kind of thing, because that's what the men who mostly buy all the DIY products are trying to feel. So once you've done that, we're going to start looking at channels. So this is where we actually find our customers. And there are heaps. And I've put in here channels that are not just online, because attracting, and we'll go back again to the point of this presentation, is attracting customers to your website. You can attract your customers to your website not using a digital channel. So people talking about it, referring people, TV and radio ads can direct people to your website. So I guess my point from this slide is, don't limit yourself to, I guess, the top of mind channels like social media and search engines. There are a whole lot more ways. In fact, a good example of that is locally we had a restaurant, not a cafe, a restaurant that partnered with a brewery, where the brewery offered a tasting of their beers and the restaurant offered food to go with it for a fixed price. It went crazy, and people bought a heap of both the beer and the food, and both businesses succeeded out of that. So things like partnerships can actually bring more customers to your business. All right. There we are. All right. But I will give you a few tips, I guess, from my perspective as a marketer and someone who does a lot of advertising, in terms of what does and doesn't work and what you should be doing. So, attracting new customers with social media, choose the right channel. So, a good example of this is Facebook versus Instagram. They're owned by the same company, but the demographic for Facebook is older. So if your audience is fairly young, you probably don't want to be spending too much time and energy on Facebook. You're better off spending that time on Instagram. If you're selling more business-to-business services, you might want to spend more time on LinkedIn. All right. So yeah, choose the right channel. Your audience is unique, and they're not everywhere. Then understand what your channel does on that. What your audience does on that channel. So, for example, and I have seen this, people, selling kind of business consulting advice on Facebook. If someone's on Facebook, they're usually relaxing. There might be exceptions, but in most cases, they're not thinking about work. Services industry with young children. Have you tried YouTube, Tara? And again, maybe doesn't get traction. Yeah, right. Sharon had a good point. It doesn't always get traction. So understanding what your audience does on that channel is a good way to actually get that traction. So you'll find, especially if you look at the bigger businesses and how they advertise on things like Facebook, they'll advertise using comedy or entertainment, because essentially something eye-catching and a bit of a laugh is more likely to get people's attention. Okay, so again, work out what they do on that channel and try and align your marketing with that. So if they're looking for entertainment, give them entertainment and tie your products and services or your business into it. And that's the next step. You work out how your business or product or service fits into that activity. And again, Bunnings is a really good example. They use YouTube to make DIY videos. So it's making use of how people use YouTube for, I guess, Bunnings style products. They'll look at how to. Good question, Louise. How to get around the algorithms. That is my second last point, which is, unfortunately, you have to pay. It's got to the point where in most cases there's enough competition for attention that you'll never get, I guess, full exposure to your audience. So you have to You almost have to pay to maximize that visibility. The other option is, and I've seen it happen, it's very rare, but if you do it well enough, if your audience is so engaged with your content that they must see it, then you will get most, if not all, of that kind of that exposure. So the next step is to craft content for that audience on that channel at that time. So again, it's about making sure that what you present is exactly what they're looking for. They won't even necessarily think of your brand at the time, but later when they're thinking about the products and services that you offer, the one that provided them something useful when they were, relaxing or researching or whatever it is the one they're probably going to trust more. And my last point, if you pay for fake users, you get fake users. That's from Sharon's message. If you pay to boost your ads, what you're doing is you're trying to show your ads to people based on a demographic or a location or something like that. So for example, when you boost your ad, like for example, if I wanted to boost an ad locally, I'd boost an ad around the Macedon Ranges where I am, and people in the Macedon Ranges will get that. You might also get some phantom users, but in most cases, most of the users who see it will be in the area. The size of your audience does not matter. How engaged they are does. So this is a really important one, and it plays into a lot of factors, including things like search engine optimization, which we'll touch on. It doesn't matter if you have 100 audiences or 100,000 audiences. What matters is how much they pay attention to your content. And this is where, again, you might have to pay to get that initial attention, but if you can hold it, you'll actually make a lot more sales and get a lot more customers coming back to you even for future sales. What you're looking to do is get as many likes, shares, comments as possible. So for example, if you have only 100 customers, but every post you release gets 50 interactions, so that's a like or a share or a comment, then that's an engagement rate of 50%. Whereas if you look at someone like, like Woolworths, I mean, they're actually pretty good. But if you look at a big business that has like, a couple of 100,000 followers and they get 20 or 30 messages, we're talking about, like a 0.2% engagement rate. It's really low. So rather than worrying about the number of followers you have, focus on how many of those followers actively speak to you. And things like, Deborah, things like providing information is great. I wouldn't even do a call to action because, again, on Instagram, is the point of it to actually make people act, or are you providing them with something like inspirations that later they can come back and follow up on it? I'd definitely have your links on there, and it may not even be something that you're able to, I guess, track as effectively. They might not actually click a link, but they might be coming to you through other channels or other ways later. But yeah, providing useful information is a great way of attracting people to your business, especially with social media. Education, again, if the purpose is inspiration and education, Instagram's great for that. Actually, what I'll do is with social media, actually throw anything in the comments. I'm going to move on. If you have questions about social media, we can touch on it at the end, or you can post it in chat. Paid search ads. Yeah, they're expensive. I used to work for a company who spent about $500,000 a month on paid search ads, and we didn't get that much in terms of customers or clicks. What we did was we were running it so efficiently that it was making like 4 times as much. But they are expensive. Every click costs you money, and the competition is high. And this is because it works. And I know a lot of people tell me that Google ads don't work, or Bing ads don't work. They do work. They're really hard to make profitable because the competition is so high. To make money from the ads, you need to maximize your customer retention. What I'm talking about here is you need to have a lifetime customer value. So for example, if the only way you make ads off a Google ad is the one sale that comes through from that click, then you're not going to make money because other businesses are turning that one sale into 5 sales over the next 6 months, which means they can actually spend more and can afford to spend more for that one customer. So even before you look at advertising, you got to look at where your existing customer base is leaking, because it is going to cost you a lot to get one customer. You need to make sure that you're getting as much value out of that customer as possible. You need to be efficient with your budget. Every wasted click is draining your budget and costing you a potential customer because you didn't get another click that would have been more relevant. There are ways to do this. I would recommend, if you're going to do something like Google ads, even if you're going to pay someone to do it, do some research, do some tutorials, because you need to know at least how it works, even if you're not going to do it yourself. At least on a high level, you need to know how it works. Finally, doing it takes a lot of time. It's not something you can effectively turn on and leave, because the competition is that high and the profits or the margins are usually pretty low. So it's something you need to be constantly, working on and improving. Otherwise, again, you're not going to make money off it. So if you don't have the time or can't pay someone to spend the time, you're better off not doing paid search ads, because you will end up losing money. I know this sounds quite dire, but like I said, if you are willing to spend the time and effort and the money, it can actually be profitable. And I'm sure plenty of people have had that experience with ads, where, especially search engine advertising, where, yeah, you get a sale, but it costs you so much that you might think, well, that wasn't even worth it. There are ways to optimize that. All right, organic search. So organic search is essentially search engine optimization, which I know there are courses that ASBAS run on this. I definitely recommend, if it's something that you either get someone to do already or you're interested in. Esther, I would spend money on Facebook ads. I would boost posts. Depending on the campaign, I might also do actual Facebook ads. It all depends on what your purpose is, who your market is, and what the content is. Yeah. So organic search or search engine optimization, there are some on search ads. Sorry, Matthew, I don't understand that question. Are your sentiments on search ads valid for Facebook ads? No, Facebook ads are a lot cheaper. I find the cost of them is quite low. The purpose of them is very different. So, for example, if you're paying for a search ad, you're trying to target someone who's looking for a solution right now. So, for example, if in my industry particularly, if I was going to pay for a search ad, I'd be looking for someone who's trying to get a someone's searching for something like how to launch my startup, or I need how to get a digital strategy, or I want to turn a product into a digital product. How do I do it? And they're long terms. I'm not talking about, digital products. I would not pay for that click. I'd be looking for someone looking for a very specific answer in a paid search ad. On Facebook, you're looking for an audience who may or may not be interested in something. And what you're trying to do with Facebook is implant an idea or associate yourself with something. So it's a much more kind of open or feelings-based remarketing Facebook ads. Yeah, again, remarketing is great, and it could be used for various things. You'd need a plan for it. Google My Business, definitely. Especially if you're online only. Google My Business, I'd say, is almost essential for any business, regardless of who you are. But for remarketing ads, definitely great for getting customers returning to your website, or people who have started the sales process to continue it. But again, you got to think about that in terms of what they're doing on Facebook. So let's say I visited your website. Let's make up a website. I visited a website to buy a product, and then I didn't buy it, and I went onto Facebook. If that product is something, I guess recreational based, so let's say it was for my hobby of tennis, and the tennis racket that I was looking at appears on Facebook, great. If it was for work, and that piece of software that I was considering buying for a project is on Facebook, I'd ignore it completely. I'd be like, oh God, they're following me again. So it depends on the purpose, because again, Facebook for me is definitely more about recreation than business. So if my business life follows me onto Facebook, I'll be annoyed, and I'll actually probably resent the business a little bit for doing it. If my hobby follows me onto Facebook, I'd be a lot more open to it. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Cool. So organic search or SEO. With your new customers, a core part of SEO is just making sure your website is made well or structured well. This is not necessarily an expensive endeavor. It is not necessarily something that you have to pay someone hundreds of dollars a month just to keep going. If you have a Squarespace website, a Shopify website, a Wix website, yeah, totally, Sue. So if you have any of those kind of pre-made website builders, the background or the code behind it is great. You don't have to worry about it. What you'll be worried about or you'll be making sure is that the pages are structured in a way that's easy for people to find. If you're building your own website, or you're doing it in WordPress or Drupal or any of those kind of more complex systems, then you need to make sure that your developer is great or good. You can go wrong with custom-built websites, whereas the website builders tend to be pre-made to be great for SEO. Which is why I say it doesn't always need to be expensive. You can pay, I think about $20 a month or $30 a month for a Squarespace website, and the SEO will be perfect. Once it's well made and well structured, then it's just about getting the words that matter to your customers in there and having sensible, readable content. Next, as was mentioned earlier by Karen, a Google My Business account. It's essential. You have to have one. Even if you're an online business, you can actually tick a thing which says that you don't see customers at your location, which means rather than showing a pinpoint address of where you live, it shows a service area. That's completely an option. You still have to have an actual physical address to get a Google My Business account, but that's a quality checking thing. But yeah, I recommend everyone needs a Google My Business account if you're running a business, even if it's online. Ask your happy customers for reviews. Reviews are a form of currency on the web, especially for search engine optimization. So well-structured is talking about the code in the background. So I can give you examples. I love going into code, but things like having your headings in H1 tags, having your content in paragraph tags, using alt tags for images so that if the image doesn't load, or for someone who's got vision impairment, there is text there so they understand what is actually being presented. All those kind of background things which you don't see on the page but make a huge difference. That's probably, Minerva, my best example of structure. Page structure, I'm talking about, you got your home page, you've got your services page, you've got your resources page. That's also part of your website structure. And again, it's about making it sensible and easy to reach content. So, if someone has to click 25 buttons to get to a piece of content, you're telling, I guess, people as well as search engines that content's just not important. The My Business verification code can take ages. It can be fast. I've had cases where it's been super fast. I've had cases where it's taken like 3 months and 4 attempts to resend it. I don't know exactly what's going on there. But yeah, definitely reviews are a currency. So what especially Google, but all the search engines try to do, they find it obviously hard to rank websites based on purely numbers, but that's their job. So what they try to do, I've got that. What they try to do is they try to evaluate as much as possible what real people think about your website. So a review is a really good way for real people to tell you what they're thinking and tell search engines what they're thinking. Ellen, I've never used SEO Checkup. To be honest, I don't use a lot of SEO tools. I do a lot of SEO, but my approach is probably a lot different to, I guess, what those tools can tell me. It is good for general guidance. So is the there's one called let me quickly look that up. I think it's a Google test. It is called the Page Speed Insights. Google developers. I'll just post that into the chat in 1 sec. All right. Posting this into chat. I use this. It is free. It doesn't necessarily tell you everything that a lot of the SEO tools will tell you, but it tells you a lot of, I guess, that kind of background structural stuff, including things like, is your website mobile responsive and all that kind of stuff. But there's plenty of them, and there's plenty of free ones. The one I use is, when I do use a tool, is called Ahrefs, which I'll put in there too. It's US like 100 and something, so it usually costs me about 160 a month. So that's a fairly serious level of tool. But I kind of feel that a lot of the free, like, there's so much in the free ones that the cheaper paid ones are probably more comparable to free than paid. Ahrefs. AHFs.com. Having said that, like I said, I'd suggest especially for small businesses, you probably don't need anything that goes beyond the free level. Really, all you're looking for is indications, because a lot of the paid ones, or a lot of the kind of lower cost subscription based tools, tell you to do things that you cannot do. So things like, like if you got a Squarespace website, it'll tell you to change some code, and you're not allowed to change the code because Squarespace owns it. So anyway, reviews. Yeah, what Google's looking to do is evaluate what real people think of your website, and reviews are a great way to do that. The other half of it is to respond to them when they review you, and that shows a level of engagement, which is another measure of, I guess, I want to say popularity, but it's more about activity and how active you are with your audience. Obviously, you don't need to ask your unhappy customers to review you, but you do need to respond to them if unhappy customers do review you. Engage with relevant online communities. Yeah, LinkedIn recommendations count. Is there a service provider giving HTTPS? Dawn, you're looking for essentially like an encryption tool, like something to encrypt your website? Yeah, Sharon, getting great reviews is a sign of a healthy business and, happy customers, and that's exactly what you're trying to build. So even if you don't have to ask for reviews, awesome. If you do have to ask for reviews, actually most people have to ask for reviews because people are more likely to send you bad reviews than think to send you good reviews. You can actually find a link in your Google My Business account, and it'll say, to ask for reviews, use this link. So if you log into Google My Business, they'll provide you a link where you can actually send it in an email or share it with someone, and it'll open up your business listing and it'll open up the review kind of page. So engage with the relevant online communities, groups, and networks. So another way of getting, people who are interested in your services or products to your website is to go out and be part of the community that uses your services or products, or even build that community. But for example, again, like if we go back to something like sport, if you're a sports store, get involved in the community kind of sport Facebook groups or the community sport, sub websites or chat groups or whatever it is, wherever they're congregating, and don't sell. In those groups, obviously your role is to contribute. So you'll be giving, you'll be saying, hey, like someone will say, oh, I bought these new shoes and they're causing me all sorts of stress. Rather than selling, you go, oh, you got to wear them in. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And people will then kind of relate back to you again for that level of advice and then possibly products. But again, that activity online where you're engaging with other people creates traffic back to your website. It creates conversations which lead to your website. So yeah, my biggest advice with organic search, rather than focusing on, to a certain extent, you'll want to make sure your pages load fast and stuff, but rather than trying to trim that extra half a second off your page load speed, spend that time being active. Spend that time engaging with other people as a business or as an individual representing your business online, and do so positively. Yeah, there's probably a lot of websites that rank low on page speed insights. All right. Email. So again, remembering that we're talking now about attracting new customers. Email marketing, the general advice I'd give you is don't try and attract new customers with email marketing. The reason is if I've got an existing, like, I guess similar to Facebook, it's a personal space. So my email account, your email account, they're personal spaces. If you feel like your personal space gets invaded, there's resentment, there's anger, there's unhappiness, and it all gets associated with the brand or the business that did it. So email's an amazing way to stay in touch with your existing customer base. It keeps them informed, it keeps them updated. You know, they see the specials, they go, great, I'm going back there. If it's cold or unsolicited, it's a great way to get people against you. It will finish at about 2. We'll probably finish up the actual presentation section maybe in the next half hour, and then there's time for questions at the end. We can just have a chat. So yeah, cold unsolicited emails are a great way to actually kill your business. So I'd recommend don't buy those email lists. Don't send cold emails to people that have not already engaged with the business. In fact, I'd go as far as almost saying, unless you've talked to them, unless they've bought something, like unless they're already quite engaged with your brand, don't email them. You can encourage your customers to share your email content. So this is that, I guess, another method of marketing, which is referral. So if someone loves your content because you provide such good advice via email, they'll forward it on. In which case, that is a good way to get new customers through email marketing. All good, Julie. Hopefully you get the slides after it's done. Yeah. So yeah, it's rarely a good idea to do email marketing to new customers if your content is of a, I guess, reference type material, or how do you customer virtually now without cold emails. A lot of these other channels. So things like social media, things like you're looking for spaces, they are groups and networks where they congregate, all that kind of stuff. I find, unless you're going to do it on such a huge scale, you won't get many customers from cold emails. And if you do, I guess the stats I've seen have shown that the quality of those customers tend to be quite low. With a lot of the bigger organizations, again, Sharon, I'd go back to a persona. So with the education, you got to start thinking about who in the school is your point of contact, or the person who's going to make that decision or champion your product or your offer within the school. So for example, it might be the principal that makes the decision, but they're less likely to actually champion your offer. You might be solving a problem for the teachers, in which case your target audience is the teacher, and your job is to get them the materials or the arsenal to push that product or that concept or that solution up to the principal. So your personas will help you understand how to reach those people. And again, if your persona is a teacher, you might be looking at things like groups where teachers share resources or ideas, or you might be looking at, advertising on websites that they use, or you might be looking at, community forums, or you might be looking at actual in-person type things where you run events, like where you run a free training course or something, or a free guide, or you provide content like a free guide. All right. News and media. and I get this a lot from people. A lot of people tell me things like, "Oh, you can't actually get your content to the news. Like, you'll never get on the Age with your story." It tends to be true, but it also tends to be because of the content. So news media outlets are actually always eager for content. It doesn't have to be, the most groundbreaking stuff. They've got so much content that they push out on a daily basis. They've got room for almost anything. The people who aren't able to get their content published, and I'm talking about things like The Age or like even your local paper or whatever, they aren't selling it right. So you got to be genuine. You got to ask yourself, is it actually newsworthy? So in which case, Louise, your market is then government. Yeah, and Sandra has a great example there. Supply a great photo, and you get your name mentioned on the news. And it's because they're eager for that content. So it has to be genuine. So, again, don't have a thinly veiled sales pitch and call it a news article or a piece of news. You need to make sure you have a hook. Don't sell, obviously. People know when they're being sold to, and especially journalists or newspapers, they've got a sales model where, something's news and it's free. Everything else is how they actually make money. So if you try to cut into their, into their business model by presenting sales material as an article, they're not going to pick it up. Package it well. And this is something that Sandra has mentioned already. Make sure it's got a good image that they can actually use. Make sure the copy is well written. Make the actual content well presented so that they can just read and go, yeah, that's great. We're going to put that in. And the other option is, especially with the bigger newspapers, which we've done in the past and it works really well, find the people who regularly do get their content through. Deborah. It translates to customers in a number of ways. A lot of it is brand recognition and reputation. So, for example, and it's not an overt selling tool, but if your brand is mentioned in, any publication, like The Age is an example, but like let's say it's your local newspaper and it gets to 1,000 people, some of those people are going to look that brand up, which will lead to your website. If the article is talking about value and not necessarily what your product or service does, but outcomes to people, people who are looking for those kind of solutions will come to the website, as opposed to your competition who weren't as visible. A lot of your traffic, which we'll get to in the measurement section, is not directly transferable to your website, but leads to it. And being active, and it goes back to that whole recommendation of being active with search engine optimization. Being active online or being active in the community leads to people seeking you out, people arriving at your website, people purchasing. It doesn't always translate directly to money, but it usually leads to it in one way or another. And find people who do get their content through, whether that's journalists or freelancers or whatever. Pitch it to them if you can't pitch it directly to the editor. And they'll pitch it through, and you might have to pay for that. But still, if it's good content and you can pitch it well, they can then take it and sell it for you, essentially. I guess, and this is probably a good point that Deborah's brought up. Rather than looking directly at how do I put something on somewhere and that leads directly to a sale, start looking at it in terms of how do I get seen by people? How do I get known by people? And not just known as a brand, but known for what I do or known for what I provide. Because that kind of the exposure and trust is a huge part of marketing, and it's why you'll find businesses, especially the larger businesses, spend so many, millions of dollars on TV ads. They're not getting direct sales out of it. All they're doing is getting in front of that many people so that people know them and feel familiar with them. All right. Traditional marketing. This can actually bring people to your website. And again, it's almost wording. So you will find, and a lot of them, especially, again, talking about, I guess, the companies that spend more money, they won't always have something like visit www. blah, 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 blah. They focus on their brand with the knowledge that people will find their brand. So, for example, you'll see messages like, follow us on Instagram, find us online, search for blah, blah. What they're doing is, rather than hand feeding someone a website which they potentially going to get wrong or forget, they're giving them the quick way to find them. Follow us on Instagram. All you do is you type the brand name on Instagram and you're there. But again, you choose the right channel. So, if you sell something related to families or sports, sure, put that banner on the football oval, because it's relevant to the people who are there. Anything community-based, football oval is a great place. Business to business, probably not. Understand your audience, what your audience does on that channel. And again, it sounds very much like social. In fact, a lot of this comes from social media slide on this page, because it's the same basis. So, you're going to do a radio ad, you pick a radio program that your audience would listen to, and you pay for being on at that time, because as I say here, there aren't many businesses that can afford the shotgun approach, which is, I'll just splash my name everywhere and see what hits. Oh, that's great to see. There's some potential partnership work going on in the chat room. That's good. It is the same principles as social media, because again, what we're doing here is we're looking at engaging with people at different points. Whether it's online or offline, it's much the same. All right. There are more channels, but I'd like to maybe get a move on so we actually have some time for questions later. So going back to our persona, Jen, where can we engage with Jen on the topic of travel? I've highlighted a couple here. So things like word of mouth and friends, customer referrals. Jen, being in her early 30s, is savvy enough to know that people can pay for things. So, you can pay for Facebook likes. So she's not going to say, oh, wow, this travel agent has 500,000 Facebook followers. I better trust them. She's going to trust people. She's more likely to use things like Instagram and LinkedIn. Just, again, this is an age thing and a career thing. More likely to use Instagram than Facebook. She's more likely to be aware of things like sponsorship and paid news media. So she'll be more savvy to that kind of stuff. Probably doesn't do a lot of kind of TV, may do a little bit of radio. So I've kind of highlighted the ones that she's more likely to trust. And those would be the ones I'd be, in this case for this customer, trying to chase her up on. Because again, LinkedIn, even though she probably travels more for leisure, she spends a lot of time on LinkedIn. yeah, maybe Melbourne Innovation. Oh, sorry, ASBAS can solve that one for us, Sharon. Cool. So we've picked the channel. So we're going to do the what to say and what not to say. We're going to start with the don'ts. So I've said this a couple of times already. We don't sell. You definitely don't tell people to buy. There was a comment earlier about someone who's an artist, who's Dawn, I think it was, who sells emotions and feelings and people knowing her. That's what you sell. You don't sell a product. You don't sell a painting. You don't sell a service. You sell the outcome for people. So whether that's I've relieved stress, I have a great feeling, I have more time, whatever it is, that's what you're selling to someone. Again, going back to Bunnings, the whole DIY approach is not selling the piece of wood and the nails. It's selling the sense of achievement that you did it yourself. This is also a don't. We provide quality widgets or quality whatever it is. We offer competitive rates. We are so great. We are better than the competition. As you can see, what I'm pointing out here is the type of advertising that just talks about you. It's certainly been done in the past and people still do it. A more effective way, and something that we've found through marketing analysis and statistics to prove it, is that you should be talking about the user. And again, you'll find with good advertising or good marketing, it's all focused on the user. It's not, for example, it's not buy our well-made homes. It's, buy our well-made houses. It's move into your home. It's love where you live. It's all about, it's you, the customer. It's not me, the business. So don't talk about yourself in your marketing. You're talking about, you're talking about your content should be worded from the perspective of your customer so that they can see themselves in it. Do address your customer's needs and pains. Sell the emotion or the outcome, and make it about your customer, not you. And be genuine. If what you're selling isn't, the most high-end whatever, don't present it as it. Tell them that it's what you need, not and what I guess serves the purpose. No frills. You can sell no frills. Or if it's about being more special, sell it as more special. Images. Don't. There are so many stock images, and a lot of them look like this, and they're all done to death. I really recommend avoiding this type of work. There are actually other options, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But these kind of stock images, which, you can download them off Google, you can get them off stock libraries. They're horrible. There are good free stock libraries. There are also good paid stock libraries. I'm going to put one in chat now. It can be hard sometimes to find Australian content. I find Unsplash is one that tends to work. I use it a little bit. To be honest, I don't use stock libraries a hell of a lot because I find real photos a lot more genuine. But there are stock libraries, and you can get good ones that don't all look like that last picture. Unsplash is a great one, and there are more, but I'll let you guys maybe share them your own, I guess, your own finds on the chat. Paid stock libraries, again, professional photographers who've taken good photos will make your content look better because they are good. Photo shoots. It's I mean, it's an expense, but it can be worth it. And if you plan it, you can actually get a good library of photos that you can use and reuse. So definitely don't throw out the idea of a good photo shoot that's planned with a bit of longevity kind of built in, so you can actually kind of go right. And 6 months from now, I'm going to have this, and 6 months from then, I'm going to have this, and just do the whole shoot in a day, and you've got your next 6 to 12 months worth of content. Real photos. I mean, I've got not the newest iPhone, but I've got a new enough iPhone that it can take images that are more than big enough for web. So you can take a decent video or photo on your phone. You don't need a $2,000 camera or all that kind of equipment. You can take your own images, and it may not look as refined and professional as a photo shoot or a paid stock library, but it can add that kind of genuine touch to your content, so that people can kind of go, that's the person I'm going to talk to, or that's what the product looks on my kitchen bench too, whatever it's going to be. Especially on social media, but even to some extent other kind of other channels as well. Having a photo that is not professionally taken doesn't always hurt your brand. It can actually make it a little bit more approachable and genuine. As long as it's done right, you still want to do a little bit of setup. You want to make it look nice. You want to make it appeal to people. But don't be afraid to take photos with your iPhone and put it on your social media for sure. Putting it together. Again, this is not, I'm not a designer. I'm not trying to lay this out beautifully. What I'm trying to show you is the difference a few bits of wording and images can make. So obviously on left here, I've got that horrible stock photo where it looks fake. You can tell none of them are actually, in a meeting, and no one in the meeting actually does that. So why am I showing it? Next, need quality marketing advice. It's kind of given. If I'm looking for marketing advice, I do want it to be quality. Talk to us today for a free 30-minute consultation. What do I get out of it? A 30-minute consultation. So for me, I mean, as someone who does marketing, I look at that and say, right, so I get 30 minutes of listening to someone hear my problems and then try and sell me on a solution. So that's essentially a conversation I could have with any marketer. What am I actually getting? On the right-hand side, what we have here, I mean, it's still a professionally taken, and this is another stock photo, but rather than a staged, everyone, clapping hands, what we have is a photo that's been taken in the middle of a conversation. It's very clearly not staged. They're clearly talking. And as much as it's a professional photo, it looks more genuine. You could go even more genuine than that. You can actually, have yourself in the picture to make it even more real, especially if it's social media. Like I said, it's not a bad thing being in your own social media. And then here in the text, we're actually talking about the customer. Are your marketing ideas feeling stale? I'm actually asking them about their pain, their problem. Then we're talking about outcomes for them. Let us inspire you with some fresh ideas and perspectives. So we're not selling, I'm going to hear you out and then sell you. I'm saying, talk to us and we'll give you some ideas. We're actually adding value with this message. And then rather than a cold contact, we're saying, let's chat. So again, we're saying we're approachable. The difference is huge, just in terms of how people will respond to it. All right, measurement. I'm not going to go too heavily into this. We're going to keep this reasonably light. You're welcome to ask chat questions. I do have a background in data analysis, so I can certainly answer some of them for you. All right, why do we measure? So marketing is an iterative process. We're dealing with we're dealing with people, not numbers. So as much as marketing seems to be a very numbers game, what you're trying to do is understand people's behavior and adjust yourself to that. So you need to actually engage with the people, measure their behavior, and then adjust. And then once you've done that, you do it again, because it can change again. I believe Google Analytics provides a lot more than Squarespace. But having said that, Deborah, if you're going to use any kind of analytics at a very high level, where you're just trying to understand how people are engaging with your website, pick any one, not two, because you're going to get the same value out of them both. And having two just means you're going to look at two different sets of things and get a bit confused. I use Google Analytics definitely a lot more than I would use Squarespace. And if I was analyzing a website, I would want to use analytics as opposed to Squarespace, but I probably used a lot more than you would. Yeah, I'd suggest use one and use what you're most comfortable with. So it's an iterated project. There's no magic formula. You and your direct competitors, because you are unique businesses, and hopefully, by the time you get to this stage, we'll have your own value propositions. But even if you don't, your customers will value your two businesses differently. If they were identical, I'd be very surprised. If customers did not even perceive any difference between you and a competitor, I'd be shocked. So there is no magic formula, because people will react differently to you than they would to a competitor, or even a similar business in another industry, or a similar business in the same industry. You need to know what your audience is doing and how your audience reacts. Your audience also changes over time. You get new customers, some people go away, demographics change, the people change. It evolves constantly. So you need to just revisit and revisit and revisit. And what works for one business doesn't necessarily work for another. So this is why we measure. Measuring online channels. Most of your online kind of tools, like Facebook, Instagram, even to some extent, Google Ads, Google My Business, they all have their own kind of advertising tools or measurement tools that you can use to understand how it works for you. Like I was saying to Deborah, pick the ones that you understand and the ones that you can evaluate. Because again, if you hop into Google Analytics and go, oh my God, I don't even know what any of this stuff means, then the tool is not working for you. If you're on Squarespace and you understand that, you're getting this many visits from various sources and they're doing this on your website, you don't need to go to a more expensive or more complicated tool. Make sure you're getting what you need out of it. Yes, these are online channels, and again, they work pretty well. They all work pretty well, pretty much the same. There are insights into LinkedIn, which you'll see on your profile page, or if you have a business account, you'll see some stats on your business account. You do pretty much need to go up to a premium account to get much useful out of LinkedIn, if that makes sense. They tend to restrict a lot of what they show you until you're on a paid account. But yeah, online channels have a lot of kind of measurement tools, and it's one of the main strengths of online marketing, is that the measurement can be quite accurate and quite extensive. Offline channels, because you can actually measure your offline activity. Good bounce rate. This is the same as the applause rate I was saying about social media. Bounce rate and session duration there is no such thing as a good or a bad one. The reason being, sorry, if anyone's interested, I'm answering Emma's question on chat. For example, let's say my let's say I have a bit of a news kind of a news section or a resource section on my website, and people visit a specific articles. So let's say I have a guide on social media, and it's a one-page guide, and people essentially click on a search engine link, arrive at that page, read the guide, and leave. And that's a bounce rate. Or let's say one person does that. That's a bounce because they visited one page and they left. If they do that on my I guess my search engine, sorry, my social media guide, it's not necessarily a bad thing because they might have spent a lot of time on it, or that might have been the one bit of research, one bit of information they needed, but they now have my brand awareness. On the other hand, if I'm on a shopping site and I click categories and browse everything, and I spend no more than 20 seconds on a page, is not necessarily a bad thing either. It's me browsing. So it's more about, with analytics, rather than looking at a stat and saying I need to hit a number, what you're looking at is a way to interpret behavior. So, for example, if it is that social media guide, I'll be looking at the session duration and seeing if I can change that guide to increase that duration. Or if I do want them going on to further resources, I'll be putting links in and trying to see if my bounce rate drops. There is no exact kind of number that's good. LinkedIn, I'm Nicholas. I'm of the opinion LinkedIn could be beneficial to almost anyone. I was actually thinking about that earlier this week, and I was thinking, right, if you're if you're a cleaner, like your job's just cleaning houses and properties for people, would you be on LinkedIn? And the answer is potentially yes. LinkedIn, I find as a website, or as a social media channel, is a great place for, I guess, consultation or advice. So if you want to position yourself not so much as a motel owner, but as someone who can give insight into the motel industry, or is a leader in that kind of space, or is a specialist in, and again, we're talking about audience specific here, do you specifically do events for conferences and kind of work getaways and all that kind of stuff, in which case you'd be posting content about, I guess, about those kind of events and how to run them and what to do with them and all that kind of stuff. And you could do that really effectively on LinkedIn. So yeah, definitely with so going back to the bounce rate and the session duration, don't set yourself a specific number you have to hit. It's more important to think about what the bounce rate or the session duration means to that particular page, and what changes you can make to not so much improve the duration or the bounce rate, but to improve the customer's experience. And then you look at the bounce rate or duration to see whether that worked or not, if that makes sense. So offline channels, and again, a lot of people don't think so much to measure their offline effects on their online marketing, or their online marketing through their offline effects. But for offline channels, do surveys. Look at changes to inquiries and the volume of customers. So, for example, if we do get that article in The Age, considering that, or actually, let's not The Age. Let's say it's a monthly kind of local release. Over the next 2 months, that's when the people are reading that month's edition. So from the time it comes out till the next edition, which is month and a half, people will be looking at that magazine. If you're doing nothing else and your sales increase, that magazine worked. You may not be as accurate as measuring it online, but it can give you an indication. Phone calls, voucher codes. A lot of, I mean, it's an expense in terms of offering discounts, but if you can offer a code through, I'll post my LinkedIn after this presentation in about 2 minutes. Cool. And yeah, if you offer a voucher code through the newspaper or whatever, like, you know, even on the billboard, anyone who enters that code in your website found you through that source. So you don't just have one voucher code. Like, let's say you're doing ads in a newspaper and ads in a magazine, you'll have a different voucher code for each, and you can then measure how much, I guess, traffic business comes in from those offline sources when they enter that voucher code in your website. So you do need to potentially get a little bit creative with your offline channels on how you measure it. You can also ask people. So, you know, when someone actually purchases a service from you or a product from you, you can say, hey, how'd you hear from us? Or how'd you hear about us? And in most cases, they're more than happy to tell you. Any questions? That was it for the presentation. Remember to fill out your survey too if you can. And yeah, anyone want to ask anything? I'm more than happy to answer questions. I'll go find my LinkedIn address and I'll give it to you. Let's go. Yep. Skip that. Skip. All right. Sorry, one sec. I'll just bring up my profile. There you go. Anyone who wants to contact me. Yeah, so Sue, I was saying before, and if you log into your Google My Business account, there is a link that says get more reviews. Yeah, that's what it says. It says get more reviews. So if you click that link, it will actually give you a URL that you can paste or give to your customers. So whether you want to email it to them or Emma, any suggestions? My Instagram. Your Instagram account is not indexed. Do you want to give me your Instagram account, Emma? Shopify reviews. I recommend any kind of reviews you can get, Jess. Yeah, definitely. Phil, I mean, you can, but the problem is, and especially with a lot of review sites, especially Google, the value comes from the person's Google account who leaves the review. So if you leave yourself 50 reviews from other people, Google will still see that as 50 reviews from yourself. And if you own the Google My Business account, I'd say they'd probably ignore it. So yeah. Yeah, I see lots of. Sorry, Emma, I'm having a look at Google, and yeah, you're right. I don't see it. You could always add it to your Google My Business account, which might help. Anyway, I'd say I'd start answering Emma's question. I'd start putting that link in a lot more of your content, including your Google My Business, or obviously all over your website, all that kind of stuff. The more places you put it or mention it, the more likely it is to rank. Okay, you should be able to have social media links in there. It might be a matter of looking that up, unfortunately, on Google. Would emails be a good way to contact new wholesalers? Potentially. Sorry, I'm answering Liliana at the moment. Potentially. I'm still personally of the opinion that a cold email is going to, again, if you're going to talk to a wholesaler, you're talking to them about a business opportunity. So if someone called me up and said, hey, I've got 10 new startups that need, strategy advice. Are you interested? I'd say yes. And then they'll say, can I send you an email with some more information? I'll say, yeah, definitely. Whereas if I just get the cold email and someone says, hey, I've got 10 potential leads if you're interested, I'd probably ignore it. Oh, I haven't. Sharon, is that me who's frozen? Okay. So yeah, Emma, I'm sorry, I probably can't give you that advice on Google My Business right now, just because I'll have to essentially go quiet and look up a whole bunch of stuff on the internet for a little bit and come back to you. So Sue, the type of content I recommend posting on LinkedIn, it's specific to, I mean, I've said it before, but I don't want to sound like I'm not giving you a good answer. What I've suggested, it depends on your audience and what they're looking for. So again, LinkedIn tends to be, I mean, to be honest, employees who are looking at things related to work or for a new career. So if your business revolves around work or advice or business help or employment help or any of that kind of stuff, great. Or how to advance someone's career. And again, like if you're providing support services to teachers or to people in a certain industry, LinkedIn could be great, where you provide kind of snippets of advice or support or motivation, and that prompts them to come back to you for more. Virtual assistant would be a great thing for LinkedIn. Again, and you'd probably again target your C-suite people, and you might even want to start by paying for a premium membership so you can kind of see people and their current occupations. Uniforms, yes. Are we talking work uniforms, Nicole, or school uniforms? There you go. I'll leave that with you, Ellen. Was the virtual assistant. So yeah, work uniforms. Yeah, again, you'd want to probably again on LinkedIn pay, unfortunately, for a premium account or subscription, because then you can look at the industries and like the operations managers and stuff that would actually be sourcing that type of information. And you'd also be looking at not selling the uniforms, but providing things like advice. And it would probably be more around things like advice on procurement, risk, all that kind of stuff to do with sourcing those kind of products. Because again, on LinkedIn, no one's going to buy, I guess no one's going to convert to a sale based on, we sell uniforms, you should buy our uniforms. So on LinkedIn, they're looking for tips, advice, guidance on how to do things better. So if you can provide that information in relation to uniforms, then LinkedIn would be amazing. And again, half of LinkedIn is just networking. So it's about, again, if you start by providing that kind of advice, you'll start conversations with procurement managers, you'll start conversations with operations managers, even with admin assistants who do a lot of the ordering. And they will then go to you when they need it. Good question. So Emma, is Joomla bad from an SEO perspective? Joomla, WordPress, and Drupal, and a lot of them, they can be amazing at SEO. They can be terrible at SEO. It really depends on who made it and how. Any of these kind of, I guess, like I said before, custom built, or the ones where you can actually make almost anything out of it, those kind of websites those websites are completely customizable. So you can, like, we've made, I guess, web-based apps out of WordPress, and we've made normal websites out of WordPress, and they're very, very different, but they're the same technology. So with that level of customization, it can be amazing or it can be terrible. It depends on who built it and what they were thinking of and what they were planning on when they built it. So Joomla can be terrible, yes. GoDaddy is a hosting website. Their website builder's pretty average. Lee, yes, I'll send the slides, definitely. I think everyone will be on a list for this workshop, and ASBAS will be able to send you the slides at the end of this. Suzanne, going down a level from premium back to a normal move is not necessarily a bad move. It's going to depend on whether you're using it or not. So again, if you're actively finding and following up leads on LinkedIn using your premium kind of, I guess, the premium level of information, then definitely you should have kept it. But if you weren't using it, or you didn't have the time, or you find that the information you get from the free account kind of does the job for you, then you're wasting your money. You just get what you need out of it, really. Yeah, so like I said, GoDaddy, as a hosting solution, it's all right. As a website builder, I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so Minerva, selling 10 products, is WordPress, Shopify are the same? This is a bit of a, I'm answering Minerva's question about WordPress versus Shopify. I would recommend Shopify ahead of WordPress. The only reason being, the Shopify checkout process is unbelievable. I don't know if anyone does a lot of shopping with online, but checking out through Shopify can be amazingly fast and easy. And similar to what I was saying about Joomla, WordPress, you build what you build. So, you can have a WordPress website that does Afterpay, or you can have one where you have to enter every single bit of information, including, answering 53 security questions. It can be hard to use. Whereas Shopify is always easy to use. And especially if your business is to sell a product online, you'll want to make sure that process is easy. It's more important that the process is easy than the technology is, I guess, specific to specific to WordPress or Shopify. It's more about making sure the customer gets a good experience. We do development. In my experience, Shopify management can be done probably by someone with less technical knowledge than we have. So if you want to build a Shopify website or change a Shopify website, we'd do it. If you want to manage your products on it, I'd suggest you could either do it yourself, or you could probably get someone with a more admin level skill set to do it, Suzanne. Yeah. And yeah, totally. If you're not using LinkedIn, don't pay for it. So yeah, we do Shopify builds. We do a lot of things. Yeah. Any other questions? No, I'm gonna just go to the next slide just to remind you. If anyone did want mentoring, I mean, I'm listed on the ASBAS mentors. So if anyone needed, something specific to digital marketing, technology, we do a lot with startups, a lot with strategy. I'm available to be booked, or there is a whole lot of other people with a whole lot of skill sets, and they're usually relatively close to your location, which doesn't necessarily matter too much now, but it helps even with understanding your market. So obviously I'm up here north of, would you recommend a Squarespace online shop, Esther? I've built a Squarespace online shop once. It was pretty good. Again, similar to Shopify, it worked smoothly. I find Shopify has a better checkout process, but they're both good. So yeah, but yeah, feel free to book. And you don't have to request me. There's people who specialize in social media. There's people who specialize in all sorts of things. So definitely, yeah, get in touch and book someone. For $25 for 2 hours is unbelievably cheap. So yeah, Squarespace, Esther, I would say yes. It's a good option, and it's again one of those things that can't go wrong because of the way they build it. But my preference is still Shopify. But like I said, that's the convenience factor for me. Again, I don't know how many people have done it. My experience with Shopify is because I've bought stuff with Shopify before. It gets to the point now where if I check out on a Shopify website, it sends me a 6-digit code, and I can just enter that, and my checkout's complete. So it's super convenient. I'm not sure. I'm guessing if the demand's are there, they probably would run this session again with me or someone else or whoever. Thanks, Mia. I'm glad you got some value out of this. Yeah. It's been good for me too. Like I said at the very start, I like sharing insight, sharing knowledge. Yeah. Let me know if there's anything else. Otherwise, anyone who's has to head off, you're welcome to head off. Everyone wants to stop and chat. We have another 5-10 minutes, really. Yeah, Nicole. I mean, you probably can't get a whole strategy out of a 2-hour session, but we can, like, if you booked a mentoring session with myself or another mentor that's specific, like that works on digital strategy, I'm sure we could at least put you in the right direction, give you some ideas. Yeah. I don't know if there's a recording of this. Maybe oh, there you go. I wasn't aware I was being recorded. That's great. Oh, that's brilliant. Good. And yeah, I'll make sure that the slides get to you as well. Let me pull that slide up. Oh, Square Up. I haven't heard of Square Up. Oh, the card reader. I didn't know. Do they have a website? I mean, as a card reader, it's amazing. I've used it to buy stuff, Esther, but I didn't know it had its own kind of checkout tool. Okay. I can't say I've had any experience with the website. Yeah, there you go. Something I'm gonna have to look up. But no, I'm sorry, I don't know whether it's great or not. I'd assume, again, being a pre-made website builder, and Square, I mean, from my experience, have a reputation of doing things quite well. So they're probably pretty good. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah. Yeah, Esther, like I said, from my experience, they're probably pretty good, but I have no hands-on experience with it, so I can't really tell you, unfortunately. All right. Well, thanks everyone. It's been great, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. And yeah, definitely book sessions, book mentoring. You can probably get a lot of value out of that. All right. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.